What's up, guys? It's your boy, Barca Boy 103. Today we're gonna be doing another reaction video, and we're gonna be reacting to a video by Goal Line Football about how Joan Laporta brought Barcelona back from the dead, not just once, but twice. Of course, aimed elections coming up. This is a nice little hot topic to react to. The video did quite well. I've seen it's well edited. I haven't watched, of course, the whole thing. Just kind of skimmed through it super quickly. But of course, I'm going to give you guys my thoughts, my analysis on it as well. Maybe a little final end, my review of what Laporta has done so far. Of course, there are elections coming up very soon. Of course, before we get into it, make sure you guys drop a like down below and subscribe as well if you haven't already. And let's get right into it.
Some men inherit glory, others walk straight into fire. In March 2021, Barcelona, once the beating heart of football, was barely breathing. The books were bleeding. The club was over $1.3 billion in debt. The wage...
I think the debt now is at like 900 million, which, to be fair, losing 400,000 in the significant time, investing in the squad with the market and with other things being a priority. Not bad, not bad.
Bill was unsustainable. UEFA was circling. La Liga was enforcing.
Yo, fuck Javier Tebas. For real. I'm not even beating around the bush here.
And the greatest player to ever wear their shirt was slipping through their fingers. Gone were the nights of tiki-taka and treble dreams. The stadium was silent. The fans were furious.
The stadium was not silent. Let's not change things up here. Was the stadium silent? No. Most times, even for a dead rubber game, the Camp Nou capacity of 90,000 would fill up 60,000 easily, and that's probably the capacity of like 90% of clubs around the world. Like, I think Arsenal's capacity is 60, United is 70, Chelsea's 40, Etihad is 60. I think Bayern is like 80, Juventus Turin is like 50, PSG is like 60. So we fill out most top European clubs on a weekly basis. So the fans were there. The team was it?
And the boardroom was filled with empty chairs and blame. This was no club. It was a ruin, a ghost of what had once conquered Europe. And then... All
right. Let's... We're taking it a bit too far here. You're acting like we got relegated like the 8th division. We're trying to crawl way back up. We were still relevant despite us being absolutely woeful on the pitch, marketing wise, sponsorship, revenue. We were still earning a lot, probably top 3 if not the most, which of course not to be which is not the most important thing, but it's still a factor. So we weren't like dead in the rubber as I feel like the video trying to make it out, but we were down pretty bad in terms of course the footballing side.
Then he returned not as a savior, but as a man willing to face the storm, older, sharper, and far more aware of what it would take to resurrect the club again. He walked back into the presidency with no easy promises. There was no Messi
he won, by the way. Thank God.
No transfer budget to spend, no time to play politics, just chaos, deadlines, and a desperate need for leadership. But
that first year, 2021, Laporta was going through it, man. That's the things that he was doing in that first year. I think no other human being on this earth would survive. I think he should get a statue outside the Camp Nou just for that first year, from May 2021 till June, May 2021 till May 2022. What he did in that year is unmatchable, absolutely unmatchable.
One thing no one else did: memory. He had done this before. He had rebuilt once, and he believed it could be done again. Most men wouldn't step into a burning building. He walked in smiling, and what followed wasn't a miracle. It was a plan. This is the story of how Joan Laporta brought Barcelona back from the dead, not once, but twice.
Let's hear it.
Before he resurrected Barcelona from financial ruin, Joan Laporta had already brought it back from despair once before. He was not born into football. He was a lawyer by trade, a politician by instinct, and a Catalan nationalist by conviction. With a law degree from the University of Barcelona and a successful legal firm under his belt, Laporta had built his reputation in courtrooms and campaign offices, not locker rooms. But he was also a lifelong socio, a fan, a member, a believer, and deep down he carried a vision that Barcelona could be more than a club. It could be a movement. In 2003, the club was directionless. Real Madrid were winning titles and stealing headlines. Barcelona hadn't won a major trophy in 4 years. The atmosphere was heavy with failure, and the fans had lost faith.
That's true.
Laporta wasn't the favorite to win the election. He wasn't the most experienced, but he was the boldest. His charisma turned heads. His promises stirred hope, and his audacious pledge to sign David Beckham, though never fulfilled, lit up the city.
We got better.
unapologetically, and from day one, he began changing everything. Frank Rijkaard was hired as head coach. Ronaldinho arrived soon after, the smiling Brazilian genius who would become the symbol of joy and revival. Laporta didn't just rebuild a team, he reshaped an identity. By 2008,
Don't forget about the players that he also signed alongside Dino and the players that left as well. And of course, just the academy, that's where the likes of, Puyol got more prominence in the team. Xavi, Iniesta, Victor Valdez as well. So do not let, the narration ignore you from that fact as well.
magic was fading, Rijkaard was gone, and Barcelona stood at a crossroads again. Many expected a big-name coach to take the reins. Mourinho wanted the job. He even prepared a presentation, but Laporta chose a different...
Not prepared, but actually presented it. He, of course, had that meeting with the board. He sat there with his PowerPoint, presented how he was going to change things, the way we're going to play, and all that stuff. He was there. And keep in mind, Jose was, I believe, one of the assistants of Louis van Gaal back in the early 2000s as well. So he knew Barcelona a little bit, and he did, of course, have that PowerPoint meeting.
He promoted a soft-spoken former midfielder with no first division experience, Pep Guardiola. It was more than a gamble. It was a revolution. Guardiola didn't just inherit a team. He created an orchestra. He benched Deco. He released Ronaldinho. He built the team around Xavi, Iniesta, and a 21-year-old named Lionel Messi. And the rest is football scripture. In just 4 seasons, Guardiola's Barcelona won 3 La Liga titles, the Champions League trophies, 2 Club World Cups, 14 major trophies in total. But more than trophies, they redefined how the world saw football. It was tiki-taka. It was total dominance. It was beauty with bloodlust, art with ruthlessness. It was the greatest club-side football had ever seen. And none of it happens without Laporta's trust in a young coach with a radical vision. That decision, to bet on a memory, a philosophy, a promise, remains Laporta's greatest legacy. It wasn't just bold, it was prophetic. When Joan Laporta left the presidency in 2010, Barcelona was on top of the world. Pep Guardiola had just delivered the most dominant football ever seen. The club was united, respected, and feared, but success can be fragile, and in the years that followed, cracks began to spread beneath the surface. Sandro Rosell took over, then Josep Maria Bartomeu. At first, it seemed like the train was still moving. Neymar arrived, Suarez followed. The MSN era was electric.
Oh, let's highlight the other signings in that time as well. Your Alexis Sanchez, your Cesc Fabregas. Of course, that window where we signed Suarez, we had the transfer ban covering the next window, so we just went all out. Ter Stegen, Bravo, Rakitic, Douglas, Matthew, Vermaelen. Even in the early ones, I forget who we signed. We signed a few more. This will be my mind.
Trophies were won, goals were flowing, but behind the scenes, the foundation was eroding, the club's identity was drifting, the boardroom became a battlefield.
Keep in mind, like Luis Enrique left, Pep Guardiola left. They left because of the structure, the behind the scenes, what was going on there, whether it be trust or the structure and the way they went about things, they weren't happy with. That's why they left. I think Tata Martino left just because he was kind of crap and he was a bit out of his depth, even though he had a failure of a season, but, if you look at it, losing the Copa del Rey final, losing the league on the last day, quarterfinals of Champions League. I guess nowadays, after all the years of, bad, it doesn't look terrible, but at the time it was terrible because that's how much success we've had in recent times. So all these managers that have done well at Barcelona, they always end up walking because of things that happen upstairs. Flick could be the same, although I think Laporta is really handling it quite well. But I can see Flick leaving because maybe Deco's not giving what he wants, or Laporta's not giving what he wants in the future. You never know, God forbid. But every time we have an elite manager, they always end up leaving because of what happens upstairs, not really per se on the pitch.
Grew expensive and erratic. Neymar left for Paris in 2017, and the money from his sale was spent faster than it arrived. Over $400 million was spent on 3 players. None of them became the new Neymar. Meanwhile, the wage bill exploded, the squad aged, and a silent burden began to weigh heavier with each season. Lionel Messi's contract, the icon who had given everything to the club, had now become its most expensive dependency. Then came the pandemic, revenues collapsed, fans disappeared, and the financial mismanagement of the past decade was exposed. Barcelona was no longer just in trouble, it was on life support. By 2020, the situation was unsustainable. The club's debt had spiraled past $1.3 billion. La Liga imposed strict spending limits. Players were asked to take wage.
Yo, fuck out of it. I mean, honest to God, man, I hate that twat so much. The shit he put us through. I would have wished that on my worst enemy.
Cuts. Internal documents leaked. Scandal surfaced. Messi, broken and disillusioned, asked to leave.
It was all short Messi crying, man.
But the damage was done. In October 2020, Bartomeu resigned, facing a vote of no confidence, institutional chaos, and the wrath of millions. What was left behind wasn't just a wounded club, it was a smoldering ruin. And somewhere in the shadows, Joan Laporta was watching. He hadn't spoken much in years, but he had seen enough. The club he once rebuilt had fallen again, only this time the fall was deeper, the wreckage wider, and the clock was ticking. So he did the only thing he knew how to do. He ran again. This time, there were no promises of superstars, no talk of dream signings, only one message: I've done this before, and I'll do it again. On March 7th, 2021, Joan Laporta was re-elected as president of FC Barcelona. The club was on fire, but Laporta had never been afraid of flames. When Joan Laporta returned to FC Barcelona in 2021, there was one promise that hovered over everything: Lionel Messi would stay. It wasn't a campaign strategy. It was a belief shared by millions that somehow, some way, Laporta would find a solution, because if anyone could keep Messi at the club, it was him. And for
let's keep in mind real quick that Laporta did promise that Messi would stay, and Messi was gonna stay. They of course reached an agreement on a renewal. La Liga were the ones that said no. So the La Liga Federation said no. They said they forced us to sign the CVC deal in order for Barcelona to register Messi. Laporta said, I'd rather give up Messi than give up the club, because CVC deal was just not feasible or viable. In the end, of course, we've done much better than the CVC deal. We've kept more money while still getting money from those economic levers at the time as well, and we forgave a less percentage of our TV rights, because that CVC deal was basically suicide long-term. Short-term, you would have been fine, obviously. You would have kept Messi, blah, blah, blah. But he saw the long-term vision, so he made that call last second, which again kind of sucks that he didn't give Messi maybe a few more time and give us a proper send-off and all that stuff. But in a summer like that, where he came in and the club was absolutely in disarray, you can kind of understand that. I think now over the past few years, people have realized that Messi's exit wasn't on Laporta. You have, of course, Laporta haters that say it, but if you have some common sense, you know that he's probably at fault for like, what, 5%? Not only 5% because he told Messi very last second. He told Messi when he was coming, because Messi thought he was coming to sign his renewal. He came to sign his renewal and he's like, you can't stay. So that's kind of where the bad part comes.
A few weeks, it looked like he would. Messi had agreed to a new deal. The fans were optimistic. Even Messi himself looked ready to write the final chapter of his career where it all began. But then came the numbers. La Liga's financial regulations hit harder than expected. The salary cap had dropped dramatically due to the club's enormous losses. Even with Messi's proposed pay cut, even with every backroom deal in motion, the math didn't work. Barcelona couldn't register his contract. Laporta faced an impossible choice: bend to a league that offered no leeway, or walk away from the greatest player in football history. He chose the club. On August 8th, 2021, Lionel Messi said goodbye to Barcelona. There were no boos, no banners, just silence, then sobs. Children cried in the stands. Journalists wiped their eyes. Grown men hugged strangers. This wasn't just the end of a contract, it was the
end of
COVID.
No, that happened.
Standing on the other side of it was Joan Laporta, the man who had promised hope and delivered heartbreak. Some called it betrayal, others called it bravery, because Laporta knew the truth. Keeping Messi would have meant—
I think long-term everyone knows that it was bravery more than the other one. It just sucks at the time and how everyone went through as well. Surprisingly as well.
It would have delayed the reckoning, not solved it. And for the first time in decades, he made the decision to put the institution before the idol. It hurt, it divided, but it was necessary. And behind closed doors, while the cameras moved on, Laporta began again. This time without the player who had defined everything. He didn't inherit a team, he inherited ashes. But sometimes to rebuild a dynasty, you have to let go of a god. With Messi gone and the club in financial ruins, Joan Laporta faced a question no president should ever have to answer. How do you rebuild a club that can't even afford to register a player? The answer? You gamble. He called them economic levers. To some, they were a masterstroke. To others, financial heresy. Laporta didn't just cut wages. He didn't just renegotiate contracts. He began selling parts of the club itself, one piece at a time. 49% of Barca Studios was sold. A chunk of future television rights was handed over to 6th Street. Additional commercial assets were mortgaged in exchange for immediate cash. The critics howled, "You're selling the future. This is reckless. This isn't sustainable." But Laporta didn't flinch. Within months, over 600 million had been injected into the club's bloodstream. The bleeding stopped, the register opened, and with money back on the table, Laporta moved fast. Robert Lewandowski, Rafinha, Jules Koundé, Christensen, Frank Kessié. It was Barcelona's most expensive transfer window in years, executed by a club that was supposed to be broke. And
most important thing about that is how we spent the money and where as well strategically. It was not just, sell all the future assets of the club and to buy players with the money. All the money was used elsewhere as well, especially towards the Espai Barca project. But yeah, those signs all, of course, were successes. Kessié for one season played all right. Christensen still at the club. Koundé still there. Rafinha still there. Lua still there.
suddenly,
Well.
a club that couldn't breathe started to roar. The squad was revitalized. The fans had hope again. La Liga took notice. Europe watched in disbelief. Laporta wasn't just making transfers. He was buying time, buying credibility, buying momentum. Every signature was a risk. Every presentation a public bet. But it worked. Barcelona topped the table. They became the best defensive team in Europe. Sometimes to save the club you love, you have to break every rule you hate. And Laporta, once again, bet it all, and won when Joan Laporta let Lionel Messi walk. He didn't just lose a player, he lost a symbol, a living blueprint of what Barcelona once stood for. So he did the only thing that made sense. He brought back another one, Xavi Hernandez, midfield orchestrator, La Masia graduate, and disciple of Johan Cruyff, returned in November 2021, not as a legend, as a coach. At the time, the team sat 9th in La Liga. The football was dull.
Oh my god, can we go one second? Can we go back to that record? Where'd it go? Oh my 15 points from 9 games, 4 wins, 3 draws, 2. Oh my god, Coleman, what do you do to this club, man? Shout out Xavi for saving. Yeah, how we got top 4 from this also is it should be a title in itself for Xavi.
Sat 9th in La Liga. The football was dull. The belief gone. Xavi wasn't experienced. He wasn't a proven winner from the bench. But Laporta didn't need proof. He needed alignment. Xavi came not just to coach, but to restore. The passing, the pressing, the principles, everything that once made Barca. At first, results were shaky, but slowly, something began to shift. Teenagers were trusted.
This isn't even Xavi's Barca.
The team climbed from 9th to 4th. Then from 4th to 2nd. By 2022, Barcelona were contenders again. And in May 2023, they lifted the La Liga trophy. Their first without Messi in 4 years. Laporta had pulled the levers, and Barcelona had pulled themselves out of the grave. It wasn't clean, it wasn't elegant, but it was necessary. It wasn't just about winning La Liga, it was about winning with identity. Players like Pedri, Xavi, Araujo, Balde all took center stage.
I know when there's crazy.
The system was old, and it worked. Under Xavi, Barcelona became Europe's best defensive team. The goals weren't always flowing, but the control was back. The order, the unity, the Barca way. Laporta stood behind it all, proud, patient, and relentless. He had hired a coach who spoke the same football dialect as the fans, a man raised in the DNA of the club, not just a manager, a messenger of memory. But football doesn't stop for sentiment, and Barcelona is a club that demands more. In the 2023-24 season, the cracks returned. The midfield struggled, Busquets was gone, results dipped, the magic faded, no trophies, no spark, and no patience. Laporta.
That was the 23-24. A little bit of a typo there from the editor. 22-23 is the season that he just talked about, the one where we won the league and stuff like that. The one he's talking about now is 23-24.
Watched it all, quietly, carefully, because while Xavi had laid the foundation, something else
your
was now needed.
Background. Get that out of my face.
But Laporta was ready to bring in someone to electrify it. By the end of the 2023-24 season, the fairy tale had faded. Xavi Hernandez had given the club its soul back. He had trusted the youth, rebuilt the midfield, delivered a league title, but Barcelona demands trophies, not tributes. No Copa, no Champions League, no spark. For Laporta, that was enough. He thanked Xavi, hugged him, and closed the chapter. Then came the
bit more happened around that too. Xavi asking for more signings, where Laporta felt like he invested in the squad heavily enough to the point where maybe we needed 1 or 2 reinforcements, not a whole overhaul of 3 or 4. What Xavi said as well upset Laporta. I think others think differently, myself included. I guess now looking at it, we Flick won the domestic treble, so I guess the sacking, was valid. But I think at the time, it was a tiny bit harsh, especially the way he did it as well. Xavi said he wanted to leave, begging him to stay, agreeing that he stays, then sacking him 2 weeks, 3 weeks later. It's just, Crazy
Placement,
circus.
not sentimental, not safe, strategic. Hansi Flick, a German tactician, ruthless in detail, obsessed with structure, a manager who didn't grow up in La Masia, but who knew exactly how to weaponize its potential. Laporta didn't hire a poet, he hired a mechanic, and the results were immediate. Every player leveled up, Koundé became a wall, Christensen returned sharper, Fermin Lopez.
Christensen did not play, buddy. He's played like 4 games under Flick. Koundé and Fermin, yeah, sure. I don't know what other players they say, but Christensen only played 4 games, so a little bit of research needed in this video. You got 2 things, drastically wrong so far.
Fearless. Pedri, finally fit, looked reborn, and Lamine Yamal, just a teenager, was now playing like a veteran. This wasn't a revolution, it was a recalibration. Xavi planted the seeds. Flick forced them to grow. Under Flick, Barcelona wasn't just playing better, they were playing like they believed they were the best team in the world.
This is not Flick's team.
It wasn't just coaching, it was culture shock. The squad stopped relying on nostalgia. They started imposing authority. Press harder, think faster, win ugly if you must, but win. Laporta had made the switch. Barcelona was never just a football club, it was a symbol of identity, of pride, of power. And Joan Laporta was never just a president, he was its architect, its caretaker, its engine. Now, he's planning his final act. By 2024, the pieces are all moving into place. The Spotify Camp Nou, a billion-euro cathedral of football, is nearly complete. Not just a stadium, but a statement. A venue built for modern spectacle, global fans, and billion-euro nights. The Nike deal, just signed, is the largest in football history, 1.7 billion until 2038. 158 million arriving immediately. No penalties for poor sporting performance. No more desperation. Financial normality is no longer a dream. It's becoming reality. The youth pipeline is overflowing. Lamine Yamal, Pau Cubarsí, Fermin Lopez, Hector Fort, teenagers.
Again, Hector Fort barely played under Flick. Seen as a good talent. I'm just laughing at the pronunciation of the names, but I just find them funny. But yeah, I love him. Another error there for him.
Playing like titans. The team is fast, young, hungry. The manager is ruthless. And the president, he's setting the stage. Laporta knows timing, and he's been saving one last move. For one last night, the reopening of the Spotify Camp Nou is more than an architectural unveiling. It's a coronation. Laporta wants a crown jewel, a statement signing, a name that echoes. Erling Haaland, Florian Wirtz, or Rafael Leao, a player who the sources would say yes with his eyes closed. This isn't just about transfers, it's about timing, symbolism, power. Laporta doesn't want to leave the presidency with applause. He wants to leave with silence, the kind of silence that comes when something is done so perfectly, you don't know how to respond. He knows the next elections are coming. He knows the scrutiny will return. But here's the truth. He doesn't need to campaign. He doesn't need to convince. Barcelona today, financially stabilized, structurally modernized, and tactically revitalized, Laporta didn't just survive the storm, he built a kingdom in its aftermath, and now he's preparing to reopen its gates. With the whole world watching, Joan Laporta didn't just lead FC Barcelona, he rebuilt it. He stepped in when others stepped away. Once in 2003, when the club had lost its identity. Then again in 2021, when it had lost everything else. He let go of legends. He mortgaged assets. He made enemies, but he brought the club back to life. With memory, with money, with risk. He didn't win by being the loudest. He won by lasting. Now with a new stadium rising, a team reborn, and a final move on the horizon, Laporta's legacy is nearly complete. He was never just a president. He was the man who refused to let Barcelona die.
So that's the end of the video. I mean, he makes a good point there at the end that elections are coming up and that he doesn't really have the campaign, which is kind of true. There is a bit of the fan base that hate Laporta, mainly those that were kicked out of the second section because they didn't want to pay the fine. So they're the kind of ones that kind of, instigate and push the Barca see Laporta no chance around the stadium. But overall, can have this video very, very well. Got a few little facts there wrong, but the most important thing about this video is, of course, the story of Joan Laporta and why he is essentially on that Mount Rushmore for Barcelona. It's probably Pep, Laporta, Messi, and Cruyff as the four, if we're being completely honest. What he's done in his 2 tenures, especially in the second one where it's been way harder, under more scrutiny, under more eyes, easily accessible as well, is absolutely remarkable. I talked about that May 2021 to May 2022 period, the stuff that was going on there. If you just watch my videos from that time, you'll see it's crazy, astonishing, astounding what we went through. And look at us today. Domestic trouble, good, healthy squad, wage bill healthy. Espaya Barca is almost done. We're going to be in the Camp Nou in about a year or two, hopefully. things are looking very, very lively, and it all comes down to him. I think he'll win the second election with ease, if, of course, we are smart about it. And until really PK runs, I see no threat to Joan Laporta from other politicians. But of course, in the comments down below, let me know your thoughts on the video about what he was saying. Are you a Laporta, supporter? Are you a Laporta criticizer? Or are you a Laporta hater? Leave me all your thoughts down below, and of course, make sure you guys subscribe down below as well if you haven't already. And I will see you guys next time on the channel. Take care and Forza Barca.